All right.
Wait, wait. It's on. The thing's on.
It's,
You're you're
we
in the
have
live room.
nothing to discuss before we.
No, I think that's
Well,
the whole thing.
I think we so I've improved the audio. Is this mic too much in the
It's fine,
shot?
man. It's fine. Uh,
Fine, man.
it is like, will the viewer care? The viewer is you and me, so probably not. But I will say, it's a nice setup with your guitar back there and your keyboard. Why not?
Thank you.
Little speaker. I
A
was
little
thinking,
speaker there.
little speaker there. Almost verged into a slight Barack Obama. I won't even try it again
Who
because
did
it'll
who did the
fail.
Barack Obama? You or me?
It was like a combination. It was like you imitating me, inadvertently,
A
slightly
little
verging
speaker
into a
there.
Barack Obama. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know
that
that I
wasn't
have
bad.
a Barack Obama. A little speaker
That
there.
wasn't bad.
Americans.
This I feel like this was Clinton's thing. He invented the little like joystick.
The choice. Yeah, no, yeah. He's had a clicker in his hand,
Yeah,
and
yeah, the clicker. The
he was
PowerPoint
shocking one of his
advancer.
aides. Get me some peanut butter pretzels right
My
now. I need
my
another peanut butter pretzel.
teleprompter is not working.
I am going to say some more words and platitudes. That sounds insulting to say that somebody says platitudes. Platitudes have a place.
Oh yeah,
I don't
yeah.
even
You
know
got
if
to have some
he was a big
platitudes.
platitude guy. I don't know if that was his.
It's starting to get hazy in my memory. He seemed like a friendly sort, but I guess I don't want to go any farther than that. So,
Exactly. It's like, yeah,
too friendly.
it's a
Um,
complicated situation.
it's complicated. Um, Here's what I was thinking this week. You and I both had some ups and downs, and trying to just, it's like this painful process of trying to figure out how to like be creative in the world and have the world care. And I had an image just this morning, and the image was sort of like a science fiction action movie, lasers, Star Wars ish, Matrix, whatever type of thing, where it's like some force, some like green glowing laser powerful force that some like gawky teenager has to learn to master. You know what I mean? And it's like you focus it into this like incredible beam that can then, save the world or do whatever. But until then, it's like glancing off and destroying buildings and lighting
Yeah.
your auntie's barn on fire and that sort of thing, right? And so,
Sorry, Auntie. I'm
yeah,
trying to save the world while I burn down this village.
I had that image this week. I mean, I had that image thinking about this week how you and I are both just like I was thinking about you. It's much easier to think about for someone else than yourself, but like you've got all of this just like talent and personality and ability to pull stuff out of people. I know, don't get uncomfortable. Just like the ability to lift people up and brilliant songwriting and inventive ideas and just like generally positive, encouraging person. And so it's like this, it's like that like massive green laser thing. You're trying to focus it. And it's not even necessarily like glancing off the challenge, not just for you, but for both of us and for all creative people. It's not just necessarily like burning down Auntie's barn. It's almost more difficultly, perniciously, like nobody caring, right? I mean, you've got this like massive thing and you're like trying to focus it. And if you don't get it exactly right, it's like trying to figure out what's the right lens to put on it or what's the right place to focus it. And inside, you just feel like, I've got all this to offer. And mostly, it's about how do you put it out there in a way that everyone doesn't just sort of yawn and be like, oh, okay, nice, and go about their day. And you're like, and then you feel stupid. And then you're like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this and whatever. But it does feel like somewhere inside of you, there's this powerful force. If it could only be focused in the right place for the right people somehow. And you can't really tell what that somehow is.
Yeah. Well, I have a first reaction to that. I think so I have a friend who is a great songwriter. He just writes one really great song after another, and uh, and the lyrics that he
And we
writes,
hate
they're
them.
just we hate the lyrics that he writes are very they're just really clever in a way that. But the interesting thing is that I've noticed because we've been playing with them he'll come and play a new song, and um, every now and then he'll play a song, and with the rest of the people who play music, and everyone's like, "This is amazing! This is so great!" And we all get into it. We play it. But it's really only sometimes time six that you listen to the song where you actually are starting to pick up how brilliant
Mm,
some of the stuff is. And oftentimes he'll come and he'll do a song, and he'll be like, "How is that? How is that? Is this a good song? How does the song rank in my songs?"
yeah.
And he's very um, he's very forthcoming in seeking feedback. But the thing is that most people, including myself, sort of we're not ready to give the feedback yet because we don't
Yeah.
know what's brilliant about the song until we've heard it 17 times. And
That's definitely
so
true.
I
Yeah.
think it's really true about people in general. Is this is where the market really wants us to find a niche, and so that we can sort of, if you're looking for these details, then you show up once and somebody says, okay, it's almost like the map, you're being plotted on a map, and the first time it's like, okay, he's in America, and then you do one more signal and it's just like, okay, it's in New York, and then it
Right.
sort of like zooms in, and so you have to just like keep showing up with a consistent niche. At least what this market wants, right? Is that
Yeah.
and if I think if you play it this way, if you really clear about, this is exactly what I am, if you're thinking about this, I'll be your guy for that. But we're not like that. I mean, not
Yeah.
just you and me. I think people in general.
Right.
There are people who figure out a niche, but and they are often successful. But I think
Yeah.
well,
We've got more things and we're constantly
yeah.
trying.
I'm like,
But and
today
I
I'm
think that's
this,
totally
tomorrow I'm
right.
this.
Like you do, your brain, I feel like there is a thing. Music is a great example of it, where you hear a song first. It doesn't matter how many times, first handful of times probably doesn't do much for you. I do think there are certain pop songs, like my daughters will bring up a pop song, and like
Yeah,
first time you're like, oh, that's
first time. Yeah,
catchy, which is a special skill, I think, of really skilled pop songs.
not just a
But
skill. I think that's also just a million. That's like a swish from a million miles. That it just, who knows
right,
how it happens. Even
right.
Paul McCartney can't do it every week.
But I'm aware of, like, there's also really mediocre songs that you might even be like, that's pretty mediocre, and then on time six you find yourself singing it. I think it's like beating a path through the woods or through a meadow, where your first time through you don't make much of a path, but your sixth time through there's a path there, and you're like, and your brain just likes it. I think the same is true for anything that you see. It could be like a little video or someone's personality or someone's jokes or whatever, where the first couple times you're like, okay, and then it grooves the path in your brain. You're like, oh yeah, that's a thing that's familiar to me. And there's some crossover, I think, in our brains between familiar and pleasure. You know what I mean?
Well, it's because of trust. It's because I think we start out skeptical. And when we hear something, I think we really do. We want to make sure that we're not aligned with somebody who, it's just like someone starts talking. It's just like, before you start, rooting them on, you want to make sure they're not a neo-Nazi or something,
Right,
and
right.
how do you know?
Unless that's your
Um,
taste.
this is like, to each his own. I don't know if I want
Right,
to, yeah, line up over there.
right.
So and how do you establish that trust? It takes time, rightly. It takes time. And I think in the long run, it is probably for the best to have these, to be a full human with multiple sides and to show those
Yeah,
things. But I think that's going to mean that you're going to need to, for every part of yourself that you want to share, you're doubling the job. You're adding another thing for which you have to get trust, which is
yeah,
going to take the 10 or 15 times. And
right.
man, that's a tough
But
job.
yeah, and I think it also goes back to what we were talking about, I think, earlier in the week about, and you're talking about your friend who, like, sings a song and is, yeah, you sort of chuckled when you said he's very forthcoming about his need for feedback, and I think we all want that. We all want, or I don't know
Yeah.
if we all, but I think you and I both experience this, of like, as soon as something comes out, we're like, tell us it's good, tell us it's good. There's such a fragility to putting something out into the world, and you need reassurance really quickly. But ironically, that goes against exactly what you're saying, which I think was your point in bringing it up, which is you have to be willing to just not need the reassurance. In a way, if you're going to show up and do the same thing 6 times to get people to start to trust you and enjoy it, you have to be willing to do it in even in the face of 5 rounds of indifference. And that's
Yes.
really hard.
This is why I mean, and this is why record companies, movie studios and stuff are actually so valuable, because they can take a bet on somebody. They can say, "Oh, this person's got something, and I'm going to put their stuff out there over and
Yeah.
over and over again
That's
until
always been
people
your dream,
start
huh?
seeing what's great about it."
I feel like you, like from years ago, you were like, I just wish someone could like spot me and be like, kid, you got it. I mean, that is the dream, right? That's a creative person's dream. There was something great about that of like if someone who understands how all that stuff works can just see me and my spark and what I have to bring to the table, and then can be like, okay, let's shape you and let's get you to the right audience and let's promote you the right way. That is the dream. And unfortunately, that seems like, I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, that seems like maybe a thing of the past. Nowadays, it's like be creative and then also be an amazing marketer of your creativity, which is,
And yeah, yeah, and figure out what it is in the first place. I mean, the thing is, I think both you and when I was in college, I remember feeling like there were some people. I was really super young looking, and it's good to be a 19-year-old kid who looks like a 13-year-old kid if you're an actor, because you can be an adult and get, and not have to have special kid rules and still play a 13-year-old. And I think that I was being encouraged to go in this way. I had people that wanted to help me, and I didn't want to be playing Aw Shucks Kids on the Disney Channel. Totally backed away. After you did Daddy Skills, didn't you have a company come to you and say, "Hey, we'll give you X amount of thousands of dollars to do a video every month"? And the problem is that when you hand that over, what's the chances that they're aligned their idea of you, and they're thinking, "Oh, this is a product that is this and this, and kid, if you want to play ball, you just got to be this and this." And you can be like, "Well, I'm actually not that. That's not what I think I am."
and just at the end of
So
every video, hold up our yogurt and say,
yeah, that I might do.
yeah, yeah, true. I don't actually
I'm
even
gonna
remember
criticize
being offered.
capitalism for 3 minutes and then hold up your yogurt.
I don't even remember being offered thousands of dollars to do those videos. It sounds not bad. No.
Yeah, I mean, it was on it was on a video platform or something that
I kind of do
that was
remember
just
that
starting
now.
up.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I mean I'd like to think that I boldly walked away from that, but I think we just pursued it a step or two and it just sort of crumbled and didn't actually turn into anything. But I'd like to reframe that narrative as me artistically looking at option A and option B and saying, I won't be your child actor.
That's not me.
That's not me.
I'm a pure.
Keep your thousands of dollars. I'm an artist. Yeah, man. Well, so where are you at now? What's in your submarine sights? Submarines maybe not right because that implies
Well,
you're
I
underwater.
yeah, no, it feels yeah, no, I do. I'm thinking of my studio space, which is basically these two rooms in my, with a window between, that I use
Right.
to
You've been
make
investing
music.
in your studio, building it up.
I've been building it up, and I really, I have this, my long term uh, wish is that I turn it into some sort of like almost like a reality show, but instead of being, well, I don't know what all the reality shows are, but something to the effect of having artists, having people come down, having interesting conversations about stuff that matters, but also, because it's a music studio, having bands come down, having conversations with them, and then recording them, or having people come down and playing things, and just sort of like
Right.
have it be this. It's like a variety reality show where the content is about entertainers being entertaining, or people with things to say
I
saying
see.
those
So
things. So
that's a
it's
new
less
angle.
like
I didn't know
just
that there
watching
was
our
a
life.
I didn't know there was a conversation angle to it. I thought as of recently you were talking about having someone who had a song they wanted to produce, and you've now got a studio and you're a bringer outer of an encourager of art, and so you help
That's
like
true.
form the song and you're filming the thing. I mean, that's a cool concept in itself. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's true.
I wonder if you don't need the variety element to it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if that's your idea, don't let me poop on it. It just that's a new
I think
angle that you've
when
added.
I guess when I say reality show, what I'm thinking is I want to have interesting artistic people down here doing interesting things like making music. I've had this long standing thing about um, wanting to. I just like talking to people, and what's my favorite thing is having conversations with people. And so often I've had a great conversation with somebody and thinking, oh man, I wish we could share that. And in the world of podcasts and all this stuff, people are doing that now. And I sort of see a lot of people doing this sort of thing, like what we're doing right now, and say, I want to do that. I want to have these conversations because we have these great conversations and things come out of it, and they're not private; they're just interesting.
Hmm.
So the when I say reality show, it's more that I there's a bunch of things that I want to have happen down here. Some of it is people coming in playing music, like you said. I had this idea of having the uh, little contest, of saying, hey, record a song on your phone if you want it recorded, if you want a more a bigger production of it, and I'll help you record it, and we maybe recruit some of the best local musicians, and but we'll also film it. We'll make it into
Yeah.
this thing, but it's very similar. The whole process and um,
Yeah.
of what happens down here, and so
What
yeah,
would you do you have like what would be a home a home run would be like a half hour show or something, a different person coming in every time?
yeah, that's a really interesting question. I don't know. I think that it's the home run is that we're just generating lots of interesting stuff and sort of putting it out in all the various ways, and then we have channels for, oh, these are this is a playlist of the songs, this is the playlist of the conversations that came out of it, here's the behind the scenes setting up, here's the this,
Cool.
here's the that, and just
A
sort of
whole
like figuring out ways. And
universe
if we could
around it.
edit something into a show, that would be cool. But I'm in the stage of I just want to
Yeah.
start shooting it and seeing if it looks good and sounds good and is interesting. And it's very proto.
Yeah.
It's
That's cool. Well, and so much of it is centered around the studio, which I think at first you were feeling unsure about whether that was like an excuse or a diversion, right? That classic thing of, well, let me just get more equipment, let me just set up this equipment, let me just, and then I'll create, and then I'll create. But I think what we've come around to, or what you've come around to as we've talked recently, is that is kind of a legitimate part of the process, right? Getting your stuff ready so that when then there's someone there or when there's a moment of inspiration, you can turn it on and start going rather than just sort of having like great idea and being at just zero on the mountain of stuff it takes to actually execute on that idea. So,
Yeah. I saw a Neil Gaiman. He's a writer, and he said something to the effect of he's got a rule that he's got to write every day from a certain time, and his rule is he actually doesn't need to write, but he can't do anything else. He can go to his little space that he goes to write, and he can stare out the window, he can look at things, but he's not allowed to like do a crossword puzzle or do anything except write. And after staring out
I
the
like
window
that
for 5 minutes,
that's his plan. That's his option B is a crossword puzzle. I'm not allowed to do a cross, as opposed to like
yeah,
laundry and
yeah.
like
So
whatever.
and because it's so easy lately for me to procrastinate being creative by tweaking things in the studio. My latest thought is I want to my uh, earn my my studio gadget tweaking, by if for every minute, so like see how long I can do. If I can do an hour of creative work where it's
Yeah.
sort of those rules, nothing but creative work, however long I do that, then I can
You
give
get
myself an
tokens.
hour
It's like you get
to
tokens, and then you can put the tokens
move
in for
around wires.
gadget tweaking
Yeah.
time. Cool, man. All right.
So, how about you? I mean, so you have another you filmed your show and you're thinking
I
about the
filmed my
next one?
show. Yeah, but I'm having trouble viewing the footage. So yesterday morning, I got up early. My dog got me up early, and I was up early anyway. So before the house was up, so I came down here and I was like, okay, let me finally jump into the footage. And what I ended up doing was just like organizing the footage into folders. Is sort of maybe akin to adjust tweaking your studio, but like I almost can't watch it. It was only a couple weeks ago now, and I like almost can't watch it. And it feels like
I
a
know that
different
feeling.
time, a different lifetime, a different era. And I don't know exactly what that is, but I can and I am excited about like moving, thinking about the next subject and how how I'm going to do that. And this dancer I was thinking I might reach out to, and there's a place she's performing, and so that maybe it's just like everything that I do, which is like I work hard on something. Once it's done, I'm just completely ready to move on, and that's the case in
So,
work and everything else. But
is that is the next show thinking procrastinating from do you feel like I really should be looking at this stuff?
no, I mean, what I would really love, this is what I've been going for, but I don't think it's as viable as I hoped, especially on shoestring budget. What I would really love for the first time ever is to have someone else edit, have
Yeah.
someone else go through the footage, pour through it, find the story, edit, put it together. And that's, I think, if you were a pro, you could do that and maybe you'd have input on it. Um, I don't really have the budget for that. And even if I'd hire an editor, it seems like someone needs to be sort of the director of the episode to say, here's what we're going for, and here's sort of the basic structure in the arc, or like I can't remember what they call it, a story editor or something like that. And so, when I'm trying to, I think it kind of has to be me at this point for this project, and so I do think I have to face up to it to that level, even if I get someone to do the actual editing. But that's what I'm
I,
having trouble
I
engaging
wonder
with. And
if
in a way, I feel like I should have done it in the immediate days after or the week after when it
mhm.
was still fresh in my brain, and I was, now I have to sort of re-dive into the pool.
So can you have an editor just I mean because I feel like if somebody took a crack at it and then feel like you would dive right back in and be like have and then you'd go
Yeah,
and find better footage and want to replace and da 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 but
yeah,
just like having
like a
something to
first
react to is
draft.
yeah is that an impossibility to have somebody
Maybe not.
just to sort of give them an three act concept and have them just find their favorite shots put them in stitch together the rest and then
Maybe not. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe not. I mean, especially if you have money to pay people, I think people do these things. Um, so trying to launch it on your own with a very tight budget, I think, is extra challenging. But it also could be that I'm just not facing up to it. But yeah, that's that's sort of the next steps with the show. It's been, I mean, like I've talked about, it's been such an up and down of like, okay, well, that didn't work, and then actually that kind of did work, and okay, I gotta push through, and maybe I'll do something else. I've had a general, I mean, going on about 3 weeks now, just a general creative crash. Like before that, I was just felt like I was firing on all cylinders, 4 different projects. Get it in your sights, fire. Get the next one in your sights, fire. And then I pushed through that one, and then just kind of I've been just bumping along the bottom of the valley for a while, being like, okay, I think I'm ready to climb again, and I just haven't really started the climb.
this reminds me of a thought I had this morning about homework that that I for some reason I decided I want to learn a classical piece, so I learned how to play the Moonlight Sonata, and which was one of my favorite pieces. And then after I did that, then I said, okay, maybe I'll try another one. And so I picked out another piece of Bach thing, and I started trying to learn that, and I got discouraged and fell off. And then this friend of mine came over and saw the piece of music for the Bach on my piano and said, "Oh, are you learning this?" And I said, "Oh," and he was trying to pick it out, and just that all of a sudden got me inspired again to learn, and that's the song I've been working on
Interesting. Yeah.
lately. And so, but I was thinking that the magic trick in life is homework. It's like when you see somebody, the next time you see them, I think you think, in some ways, no time has passed. So the magic trick is to, if somebody says to you, "Oh, are you learning this?" and say, "Yeah, I gotta, I'm working on it." And then the very next time they see you, you like whip it out. It's like, "Oh my God, you did that!" And why were you able to do that? Because you actually did that homework. And I was thinking, like, what homework do we do? What homework do we not do? Like, there's certain things that you could surprise somebody with if you did the homework, and but we choose to, like, what is it that motivates us to actually to invest in something? And I do think it has something to do with, there's something it's kind of a bummer about homework, that you know how to do it, and that no one's going to be surprised if you do it well. If there's, so like, if there's this expectation on you that's just like, okay, now you have this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and you're going to give me the next thing, is something that's not as motivating
Well,
there.
that reminds me of, we talked about your Star Wars show where you were gonna like act out all the lines from Star Wars and play the music on the piano, and so you were practicing and practicing to try to get the songs right, and I got to get them good so that I can record them to do this show, and I was arguing, and I think it's still true, that watching you struggle was much more interesting than if you had just been like whipping them out. Because then you just think, oh, that guy's a master and he's able to do
Yeah.
that. And some people are masters, and okay, I just move past it. But if I see you struggle and be like, oh, this part is hard, it's like so hard because you got to do the stride, that's just interesting. Like, show me more. And then if I saw you actually have mastered it, I'd be like, oh my God, he mastered it. And even if it was a montage, 4 seconds of like screw ups through the year, and your beard's getting longer or whatever it is, and finally you got, finally you got it. That's really interesting. That I think that's one of those the journey is the destination type of things.
Which is interesting when it comes to where you're at with this. Is there a way, because talking about it is one thing, and then that's interesting, but I wonder if is a more interesting but also more achievable way to sort of like just clip in like little things to throw things together to say where you are on the journey, because it's really true. I mean, what it's the details, um it's the story that matters. It's not how good you are. It's how,
Totally.
it's like what you overcame,
Well,
because that's what we're all trying to learn from. We watch things because we want to know, like, how do we overcome things.
yeah, that's the show I really wanted to do. And for now, I've really given up on it for the moment because it's hard enough to do a show. But I want to do the show while doing the story of the show behind the show, which is like making a show, but filming everything in the making of the show and the struggles and the ups and downs and everything, because that's just an interesting story. But it turns out to be so hard to just make the show, let alone somehow have someone around or be setting up cameras at every stage of it to capture the ups and downs and the nothings that end up being sort of interesting. But I think I do aspire to get back to that. Maybe if, somehow it's just like, all right, we need a crew, and then we need the crew to film the crew.
Well,
And then you need
but
the crew to film the crew to film the crew.
well, there is a step behind it, which is, why is it so hard? Like, once you have a crew, you've already overcome so much. The hardest part is, like, by the time you have the crew, then you've already overcome so much. And I know that,
Yeah.
we talk about, oh, what are we doing this week, and how are we moving forward, but like, why is it so hard? Why is it we can dedicate a couple hours a day to which is better than, when I used to commute many hours before I was really working from home. Did not have the kind of hours that I have now to be creative. So you have hours. So why is it so? What is it that makes it so hard? I think we talk about it some. Just like being at a certain age and sort of overcoming this idea that, oh, you if you haven't done it by now, it's, put up your feet and watch TV.
Yeah, well, there it is something that feels unbecoming in a certain way. I mean, I'm remembering now, I guess it was after our last episode that we filmed that day last week. I sent out the latest keyboard song that I had done to damn near everyone I know.
You Make
And
Me
then
Feel, which was beautiful, so cool.
thank you. And then thank you. And then I listened to it after I had just really pushed. I mean, such a push to send that out because I'm just like, I'm getting the website right and I'm writing the email and I'm like finding email addresses for everyone I've ever known. I did an email list. Um, yeah, and I just like such a push, and it required me. I had a little window into a lack of shame. I was like, push through it. I mean, I still felt some shame pulling me back, but I was like, this is when you push through, put it out there. What do I have to lose? And I pushed through and I did it, sent it out. And then I was driving to get my daughter at soccer, and I was like, well, let me listen to it. Put it on the car, and I just was embarrassed about it. I was just like, it's not that good, and it doesn't sound that pro, and the sound is muted, and it's a little like it's not sophisticated as I remember when I first played it. I wanted it to not be sophisticated. I wanted it to be very plain, and then I listened back, and I was ashamed of that plainness, and um, so I crashed, man. I crashed hard. I had sent it out to everyone I knew, and then I was immediately ashamed about it, and that shame lasted days. And what was the point of this story? That sucked. But I think maybe in the end, I came to appreciate that. Oh, right. This was in the context of this idea that it's unbecoming to put yourself out there. And I don't know, maybe it is of a certain age because I don't remember feeling any unbecomingness when I was in my 20s and I'd like put out an album. Maybe it was just because I was young and it was cool, and it was cool, and obviously it's cool, and I'm young, of course it's cool. But I think there is something different nowadays for whatever it is, where it's just like if you're trying, it feels a little bit embarrassing. And uh,
Yeah.
I think in the end, maybe I ended up feeling liberated by the shame because it's like, okay, if you've already run around naked in front of all your neighbors, then what are you worried? Maybe you've gone all the way embarrassment wise, and you don't have to worry about going for it. How much worse can it get? So you might as well just be free.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if that can be a helpful motivation, is that if you put yourself out there in a way that you're sort of embarrassed about, then you're motivated to do something else that's better. Like if you feel like, oh, this, if suddenly you want to do it in a certain way and you put it out just the way you want it, and then suddenly after it's out you say, oh, you, like you said, I mean, like, I love the way that it starts out. It's very simple, it's very straightforward, but I mean, a lot of great music starts that way, and then it kicks in and like halfway through the first minute to this like first thing is just so beautiful. I love the way you played that. um but like the choice that you made is then all of a sudden you see it from this other angle. So, oh, people might think X, and so then you could then say, okay, the next thing that is like, let me just establish that like if you're going to play a song and you play just like the most simple chords, you sing something very simple, and then people think, oh, that was beautiful, but I guess he's not very good at that, and then all of a sudden you're like, but also whatever, just FYI.
Yeah.
um
But I wonder, I mean, would that be a good impulse? That seems like a non-pure artistic
well,
impulse. That
i
seems
think
like a,
I think it's a good impulse to keep doing stuff, for sure. It's
yeah.
to feel like, if you feel like you haven't proved yourself, maybe that is bad. But I'm just realizing that I think I do have that. Like, I've put enough stuff out there that is, I mean, what does that even mean, out there? It's like a flyer on a infinite wall. Um, but you sort of, if people have seen it, they might think, oh, okay, that's where you're at. And then I want to go, well,
Yeah.
also this.
Well, I mean,
Maybe
in a
that is
way,
true.
that's what I was trying to get away from because that was part of that's part of my experience of playing jazz when I was growing up. Is part of what you're trying to do is just like blah, 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 to show skills,
Yeah.
and I was never good enough to do that convincingly. Like I would stumble as I tried, but that was part of the aesthetic. And in a way, when I played that particular song, it was exactly trying to be a response to that impulse I had grown up with, which is just like, and if I cram in a 13 and a flat nine, and it'll be cool and it'll have a little edge. And so I was just like, just play it very plain and straight. This is a song. It was written. It was a beautiful song. And let me just play the song as it was written and just let that sing. And then just little by little bring in, sort of embellishments, but not for the sake of themselves, just because they really spoke to me in that moment of
Right.
that song.
Yeah. That's how I
So,
always felt about great music, which I think you did. Yeah, you made some of your own choices, but they were each they're each heartstring choices.
mm,
You know, like I feel like the Beatles. If the Beatles put a seven into a chord, they meant that seven. They wanted you to feel that seven. You know, if it wasn't just like sevens all over the place, they were,
right.
and the every you know every every modification to the flat chord was done because that note in that moment gave you a certain lift, and that's exactly what I think you've done with this.
Nice. Well, I hope so, man. Yeah. Sorry, I keep clearing my throat. That's what I was trying to, and then it is weird how then as soon as I knew it was in front of hundreds of people I knew, and was in their seat listening to it, my confidence, my creative confidence, my artistic confidence about it just really fell off a cliff. Where I was like, oh, I sound simple, but I do think like yeah, there could be that impulse to then like come out with a next one, which is like
Yeah.
like watch me. Not that I
Or
really could
but
do that if I wanted.
but and the other way to go is, I mean, it's probably the way to establish more trust is to double down and say, I mean
Yeah.
it. I mean this. This is my aesthetic, and just like anything else, it takes six times through before somebody says, you know what's different about the way that this person
Yeah.
plays, and I actually like it better. And and especially the kind of stuff that you're doing, it's subtle. And
Mm.
you want it to be subtle. The best stuff is subtle. And
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. You sort of want something that's gonna, like, Uptown Funk, that's gonna just be like, wow, first time I heard it, it was just like hot. And then, and so, but, and it's still great. Um, but the stuff you love the most, isn't that this? I mean, I wonder if Uptown Funk is anybody's favorite song. Everybody's
Right.
favorite song are the sort of like the deep cuts that sort of
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
hit them
the
in
other
a
thing
subtle
about it
way.
for me is I just like I wasn't I I'm not a good enough I'm not a skilled enough jazz musician to to even be able to go wild. You know what I mean? And there was something about these songs to me was this the fact that I'm putting out solo keyboard songs I keep sort of saying and telling people is like a shock to me. And then I think I realized that it's not that interesting for me to keep saying that over and over. But the reason it's shocking is because yeah, I played in groups. I'm good enough to be part of a group, but I've never been skilled enough to be a solo player. And somehow this keyboard and these types of songs works for me in a way where it's like, oh, I think that's something unique. That's something I have something to contribute on this instrument, and that's been just sort of a shock to me because I've just never thought of myself as good enough or skilled enough to do that. And somehow this just like random combination snaps into place, and it feels like it kind of works. And that's what's so shocking to me is like, oh, well, this I can do and I can offer. Like I don't think I could convincingly offer something that's like more technically proficient. There's a lot of people that can do 100 times more proficient and fancy than this, but if I can just speak, if I can play from the heart, even if it's simpler, or I don't know, if the pieces just sort of fit together, then don't fight it. Just let it let it
Well,
loose.
yeah, there's a reason, it goes back to the homework thing. Like, what do you choose to do for homework? And and I think that why this is hitting such a sweet spot for you is because this is what touches you. This is what you feel the most, and that's what you can feel when you hear these
Mm,
pieces that you just put out. It feels like this is you expressing yourself, and that's the goal. I think that's the goal of any artist, is to somehow communicate feelings through art,
mm,
through paint or music or story or whatever. It's if you're able to do that, and I think that the reason that you're able to do that so well with these pieces is because somehow this is what connects to you. I mean, so often, I mean, what when I'm one of these people who doesn't love a lot of jazz, but I love Kind of Blue, Miles Davis Kind of Blue, which is because I mean, it's, I don't want to say it's simple, but it's pared down and feels like, similarly, like it feels subtle, but it feels completely, there's just no there's no BS on top of this
mm,
emotional resonance. And so where do you go from there? Like I was saying, like maybe somebody thinks, oh, that's too simple, let's go crazy and let's show off that we have our chops. But are you communicating your own feelings? Are you communicating your own soul better with more stuff? Everybody knows probably not. And but like what you're doing with this, you're bringing decades of musical experience. You're not This is not just what somebody would do if they're just playing something out of the book. You're
right.
But it's just this subtle difference that really does communicate who you are. So I think that if you were a person who felt like, really complicated stuff like that really touched you, you would have done that homework. You would have done that homework in your 20s because
Mm.
you were like, this is what really makes me feel. But maybe in a way, like every time that it was time for you to spend time at the keyboard, you didn't do that. Why?
Right.
Because that wasn't really pulling you in your
I like that framework
soul.
because I just thought it was because I was lazy and undisciplined. But I like your framing of it. That feels way better. Well, it reminds
You
me
are
of
not
so.
lazy and undisciplined, let me tell you.
Okay, thank you.
I know that enough.
Well, so I have this friend, Kamasi Washington. Used to be in a band with him, and he's now maybe one of the biggest, if not the biggest, jazz saxophone players in the world, which is a beautiful fulfillment of justice in the world. I wouldn't have ever predicted it when I was playing with him, but it's absolutely warranted. He's brilliant and wonderful. And I was just, I don't know if it was last night or something, on Instagram. I follow him on Instagram, and it was some interview with him, and he was saying he's always had. I played with him when he was like 19, but he's always had this great depth and uh, yeah, just depth of soul and personality, and intellectual curiosity, and all manner of things. He was talking about how he was like, everything we play has to feel like it's from the earth. Um, and that really comes through in his music. And he was saying also, I think he was quoting maybe Mingus, Charles Mingus, and saying that Mingus said, anyone can make something sound hard. I can't remember if it was exactly this, but it was something like, anyone can make something sound hard. The tough thing is to make something sound simple. I don't remember if the words were hard and simple, but it was that concept. And it's really true. And Kamasi is as technically proficient as anyone. He could play his brains out. And in fact, when he was 19, that's what he was doing. He was getting out there and just like plowing the hell out of the sax. I mean, he was doing it with a lot of knowledge, and it wasn't random, but he would get up there on every solo. He would start and he'd play from the heart, and eventually he'd just be blasting, just blasting. But he was 19, and now he blasts when he needs to blast and he doesn't when he doesn't need to. But I think there is something about that of just like, I'm going to channel the music that is real. This thing that's really coming. It's like coming through the earth and it through my feet and up my body and out my fingers or voice or whatever it is. That is just an amazing skill to be able to channel that, you know? And I feel like I'm on just step one, step A1, pre A1 of being able to get there. But I think you could see how just, you could see traveling that journey as a really skilled musician of being like, I could play anything I want, but what I really want to do is feel what's authentically coming through the earth, through my body.
Well, it's an interesting question. How good do you have to be to make something that touches people? And, like, it's like plenty of punk bands were able to, I mean, in every rock band, I mean, they're just the different levels of competence, and they're still able to connect with in some cases a huge audience. And you can think, oh well, this is a dumb, the most audiences are dumb and we could go for a higher level audience, but I don't think it's true. I think that people, I mean, like, there's a lot of dance music that connects with people on a level, and the reason that is really popular and some isn't is because the people who are making that dance music, unless they just got lucky, but they understand the need of like
Yeah.
what you need to dance to in a way that is just, actually, if you were to study it, it would probably be really
Yeah.
complicated. But
They're
everybody's
tapping
sort of,
into something real, aren't they?
yeah,
Even, what you made me think of is even like, I don't know what you call like rage metal, like music that scares me. That's just people angrily like yelling and
yeah,
it's just swelling. There is something real and you're tapping into something for
oh
some
yeah,
people that is just like, that is real. And, and it's just like outlet for something real.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, then it's
yeah.
decided we'll become rage rockers.
It's interesting. It's like, what does your soul sound like is an interesting question.
Hmm.
When I listen to the piano music that you just put out, and well, I felt like I got to know you better after knowing you for many years after hearing those pieces,
I remember you
because
being, I remember you being sort of shocked, like,
it's
like
like, dude, you have a
there's some
lot of
depth there.
feeling.
you, you experience emotions. What is the sound of your soul, or like what's the
Yeah,
closest
that's
you've done to
it's
it?
a really, really interesting
I mean,
question,
the
and I don't.
house, your song "The House" comes from somewhere. Your music with Katrina really comes from somewhere, but also like the Italian phrase book and these songs that have humor but cleverness and brilliance to them. Man, I got really into just the other day. I started whistling the end of the Apricots, one of your songs.
The end of the apricots,
Yeah,
end of the beans.
end of the beans. Fin des haricots.
Fan des
That's brilliant
haricots.
too, man. There's all these. That's the other thing is when we talk about finding the connection of our music to the world, it also, we're always talking about what to create next, but it also could be like you have you have a genius back catalog, you know, and maybe that's another route to go is just harvest your back catalog and market that to the world.
Yeah, I was thinking that, when it comes down to being creative, the thing to do is just to keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. And I was like, is my bottleneck really that I don't have enough songs? Like, I don't think
Totally,
that's my problem. You
totally.
know, I don't know that. Yeah, like, of all the things
It'd
I
be
need to
like
figure out is more songs.
Prince hadn't gotten discovered and he was like, 50, he was in his 50s and like, just like, I just got to keep writing. He's got like
Yeah,
800 songs in his
Purple Rain
catalog.
is in the can, but he hasn't shared it with anyone yet.
I wonder if that could be a profession or a job that some people would be good at and interested in doing is just like, hire me. I'm going to go through your stuff and figure out who you are and then brilliantly promote you to the world.
That is a great idea. I would pay money for that. I
Oh
bet other
yeah,
people would too.
yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
let me
if someone would
yeah.
enjoy doing it, you know.
I could almost maybe do that. Maybe. But I still
But I
haven't
think it'd
figured
have to
out
be
the
someone that,
marketing.
yeah, and someone that doesn't have the dream for that to be them, like a great label person or an A&R. I don't know really what those music label things were, but they probably didn't have their own dreams of stardom, right? Their thing was like, I love going out, finding the next act, getting them on the right channel, pairing them up with the right producer, and then I get to say, I saw so and so and I put them out onto the map. I think you'd have to get someone who that would be fulfilling their dream, and that's how they could be great at it, rather than the conflict. I think you could be great at it, but I think you'd always feel semi-conflicted about it because you have brilliance of your own to share. And on that note, we'll leave you with that wistful look. All right,
Thank you,
man.
sir.
Yep.
Talk to you.
End broadcast.